So I think that I learned early on that you can only do so much process improvement to the point where you just have to execute. You just have to go do it. It's like Kelsey was saying, you have to get out of the building, get out of the house. And it's not going to be perfect. It's like the people that say, I want to have kids someday, but I'm just waiting until I'm financially ready. You're never going to be financially ready. Just have kids. It'll work out. Go out and have business. It'll work out.
I have 3 kids and I am not financially ready.
Yeah, same. I am super not financially ready for all my kids.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Advice Business Podcast. Kelsey, I'm excited today because I feel like we have found the thing in episodes that we like the most, which is our advisor growth stories. And it's been a minute since our last one. I don't know. I've been itching to get back to these conversations because it brings to life all the things we talk about on a daily basis. So who are we talking to today? Whose story are we going to hear today?
Yeah, I'm really excited because we have Adam Koós here from Libertas Wealth Management Group on the podcast. Welcome, Adam. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. This is going to be fun.
Yeah, I'm really excited. And we didn't even tell you this, Adam, but it's actually Zach's birthday as of the day we're recording this. So this is like a birthday gift to you, Zach, is that we get to go talk about advisor growth and talk about, how can we do this better in the industry? And Adam is going to be a perfect guest for that because you've got a lot of exciting things in the works. And it was so exciting that we had to stop talking and hit record because I was like about to go nerd out and ask you a million questions. So I'm like super pumped because this is going to be we don't know a ton about Adam. Like we don't know each other before. We don't know each other before this meeting. So this is very exciting for me and for you, Zach. And also happy birthday.
Thank you so much. A great gift.
Okay, so that's over now. Let's focus on Adam. So Adam, introduce yourself. We would love for you to tell our listeners a little bit about you, how you got into this industry, and a little bit about kind of just your history that you're bringing to the call.
Sure. No, I grew up in Cleveland, Ohio. I'm a lifelong, very sad Browns fan. Season ticket holder. I don't know what's wrong with me, but I'm going to stick with them until I'm probably dead and they still haven't won a Super Bowl. But we came down to Ohio State University because my parents went there. My dad's from Hungary, hence the strange last name and pronunciation. And since they went to Ohio State, I was going to Ohio State. There was no, college visits. So I wanted to be a doctor because my dad was an optometrist, but I learned very early on I wasn't into the whole optometry thing. It just seemed very routine and everything was the same. We've all been to the optometrist, is this one better or that one? What about this one? What about this one? And 14 times, 15 times a day got a little old. So I needed variety in my life. And I thought I wanted to be a trauma surgeon because I worked at the Ohio State emergency room for 3 years actually and had so much fun there. But some things happened to me personally toward the end of my college life, my senior year. And to make a long story short, I just kind of decided I didn't want to go to school for 7 more years, between med school, fellowship, surgical residency, all that fun stuff. So I call my dad as I'm walking down the street, a little bit scared of what he's going to say. And I just kind of said, hey, I've decided I'm dropping out of the pre-med program. And he says, what are you going to do? And I said, I don't know. I've thought about, something in software, something in pharmaceuticals. And he says, what about become a financial advisor? And I say to him, I said, Dad, I took Econ 200, literally. I took one finance class in college at the time. And he says, yeah, but you're really good with people. You're really good at educating people and kind of making complex things easy to understand. Plus, you're always messing around with that virtual stock exchange account that you have. And he's like, my financial advisor isn't the best at communicating things. And I think he'd be good at it. And I'm thinking, okay, I'm still not interested, to be honest. I thought, okay, great, Dad, thanks. And then he says, and it'd be a lot like financial surgery. It was kind of the catchphrase that always stuck. And so I talked to his advisor up in Cleveland. I still wasn't really interested. And it was really the hang up was the ethics in this industry. I struggle a lot with right and wrong, and kind of pretending like everything I do is going to be in tomorrow's front page. And it just seemed like our industry was riddled with a lack of ethics. And, the things that were on the front page usually weren't good, So it took 2 different meetings with different financial advisory companies before I finally said, okay, maybe this is worth giving a shot. So I was hired right out of college. I started my career 10 days before the World Trade Center went down. I always joked that I was 60 pounds lighter, so I looked like I was 16. I was trying to get people 3 times my age to trust me with their life savings, going door to door, business to business, and the market's precipitously falling. So that was my start. That's how I got into the business, and it wasn't easy, but I spent 3 years roughly with a national brokerage firm, kind of just working my butt off and, doing all the things that we're supposed to do, the stuff we don't like, right? The uncomfortable stuff. And then I started my company at 25 years of age. November 4th of 2004, I started Libertas.
So, awesome story. If we had the time, I would want to unpack you describing the trauma emergency room stuff as quote unquote fun. But we'll save that for the next podcast.
I still watch surgery on YouTube. My wife thinks it's really strange, but
that is fascinating.
Wow.
I think every time, Kelsey, we're learning, we need a psychologist to sit in with us on these episodes.
I know, there's a lot happening.
But where I was going, I'm very curious to hear. So this perspective you had kind of by default of what a financial advisor is, like, was tinged with this concern about ethics. Mm-hmm. What do you think, it's kind of a loaded question, but what do you think, like, juxtapose your perception of what a financial advisor did, like what is their actual job description in those door-to-door days versus what you kind of learned it to be? Like, what was that evolution of, who your dad's advisor was? What did that mean to you in terms of what value they were providing to your dad in theory versus kind of what that evolved into in your mind?
I think that when you start and in this business, you have to generate revenue for the company you work for, right? I mean, that's the problem, really. I mean, it's different now than it was, 24 years ago when I started, where, I was given $1,800 a month in income for 12 months, then that was it. I still have all my income numbers. I made $42,000 my first year and 26 my second year. It was $23,000 was all I made my second year in business. But everything was commissions back then. Obviously, there was no salaries. So, we were taught, and I imagine it's probably similar today, but we were taught to go find clients, kind of beat up their portfolios like used cars, use fancy language like alpha and beta, and then cherry pick, let's just say, the top 7 or 8 diversified portfolio of funds over, they have 5-star rankings over the last 5 years or 10 years. And of course, the client doesn't understand that we never own those funds for the last 5 years, right? But we take those funds, we present them, we show them how the beta is lower risk, the alpha is better, more outperformance. That sounds great. They invest their money, they become a client, you go find more clients. That's how it was for me. And what I realized very quickly is I just couldn't do that. I just, I wanted to be consultative. I wanted to help people make work optional someday. And financial planning, which is the core of our business, even though investment management's hugely important, it's like if you're a travel agent and somebody goes, hey, I'm getting married. I want to take the vacation of my life. And I want you to help me get there. And you say, well, where do you want to go? It's like, well, I'm not going to tell you. It's like, well, how am I supposed to get you there if I have no idea where you want to go? And it's like, well, that's what the business was like when you're basically, selling investments, for lack of a better word, without any planning, or as the saying goes, a dream without a plan is just a wish, right? We're just hoping we get there, and hope isn't exactly the best strategy. So for me, I wanted to get to a place where I could do planning and help people figure out when they could have the choice to quit working and then back into the investment management from there.
So what were some of the early struggles in trying to make that transition in terms of just like, sorry if you just said this, but how did you start? Like, did you have full flexibility to do what you wanted, or were you kind of bumping up against issues with even trying to position maybe planning as the core service and investment management as kind of an outcome of the plan? Plus, obviously, there's other inputs, but
we had some control-ish. I worked for, I want to say the company name, but I worked for a national brokerage firm where you get your own office. I'll let people figure it out on their own. If you do well enough, they build an office out for you, and it's just you, and then eventually you can get an assistant. And the problem was it wasn't like they penalized you for doing planning, but there definitely wasn't any benefit for it. There was no incentive to do planning. The incentive was more around commissions, earning more revenue from the standpoint of commissions on investments, commissions on annuities, commissions on insurance products, like life insurance. Even recruiting to the firm was considered, one of the, call it notches in the belt that could help you earn trips and things like that, all-inclusive paid trips. So that was what it was like.
Got it. And then were there any other early struggles that you'd call out just like very early in your career that have kind of, we don't need a comprehensive list, but anything that kind of still lingers today, like learnings that came out of those early struggles that you've kind of used as your career has progressed?
I would say probably it's one of two things. The first and easiest one would be just the difficulty of prospecting. The hardest thing to do in this business. Most people, when you put a job offering, you go on and say Indeed.com and you're looking for a job, people say, "Oh, I don't want to do sales." And what they don't realize is that there's nothing wrong with sales. All sales is taking a lead and taking that lead through a process, an educational, consultative process, and then that person determines if they're a good fit. Well, technically, it should be both of you determining it's a mutual fit, right? But that's the sales process. So the hard part isn't sales. I could, if I had a nickel for every time a financial advisor asked me, "God, Adam, how do you bring in the business?" If I could just get them in front of me, I can get them to work with me, but I just can't get people in front of me. So the hard part's not sales, it's lead generation. Lead generation is the hard part. And I just worked really hard. I mean, we can get into that later if we want, or maybe on another episode, but I became obsessed with trying to figure out how to efficiently get new business in the door, because I had goals I wanted to reach. And, I had this, life growing up where, my dad was an optometrist, and I felt like the scariest part of my life was thinking that I'd peaked my senior year, and that from that point on, I wasn't going to make as much money as my dad, and I wasn't going to be able to provide the vacations that my dad took us on, and that my life just wasn't going to be as good. So I had these goals I wanted to hit. So lead generation was huge. So I would say that was one. And then the other one, which kind of goes in line with what, Kelsey, you and Zach do, is the portfolio management piece. I learned pretty early on that all it takes is one big crash, and sitting face to face with clients over and over and over again for 12, 18, 24 months to realize it gets really old telling people, "Don't worry, it's going to come back. Just look at this big mountain chart." And not having, because this is the thing, clients just want two things. A, they want to know they're going to be okay. And B, they want to know that you're paying attention, doing something about it, and you've got their back when things get rough. That's it. It's that simple. Now, is it easy? No, it's not easy, but it's simple. So I'd say that those are the two biggest struggles I had, and things that still kind of carry with me today in my business.
Yeah, that's great. One thing that we run into a lot, and I'm curious your perspective on this given the story you just told. So we a lot of times run into, I think a lot of advisors know that it can be positioned as sales and marketing, but specifically lead gen and prospecting is a really difficult part of being independent or even being an advisor at all. But one of the interesting things is that I feel like when something is hard and you don't love it, and it's not your thing, you tend to avoid it more than if it's hard and it is your thing. And so a lot of advisors enter this business because they love planning and investment management. That's like the thing that they're obsessed with. And so they're thinking, "I'm going to go build a business around this because I love it. I'm obsessed with it. I want to do it every day." And the thing they don't want to do every day is go figure out how to run the business or generate leads and predictably grow, basically. And so then you kind of get this thing where they're continuing to focus on like the service offering and improving that and servicing clients and not focusing on growth, and then continue to have a growth problem because they're not focusing on it. So I'm wondering for you, because you entered just kind of, it's not like you were playing with your own financial plan or like you were thinking of this and your dad was kind of like, "This could be a good option." I'm wondering, did you approach it more in those early days as like, "I'm going to build a business," like, and that was the hat you were wearing, and then that the service you were learning in terms of planning and investment management? Do you think that's why so early on you took that focus, or was it more out of necessity and you would have rather been doing planning, I guess, the whole time?
No, I think that if I'm being honest, I think that I had a personality for it and a competitive drive, and I learn when I master something, I get bored and I don't want to do it anymore. I want to do something else. I want to grow something else, whatever. But the good news is, while I think many, if not most, financial advisors that love the planning part think that by rehashing the second appointment in their 3-point onboarding process, or changing their financial planning software and going through that 6-month process, they think that's going to make things better. At the end of the day, it doesn't make a difference which planning software you use. It doesn't matter your process does matter. I was going to say your process doesn't matter, but it does matter. You do have to have a good process in place, but then it's just repeatable. It's just installing a repeatable process that is comprehensive and does all the things that financial advisors do. And I think most people already have that in place, at least close. It's close. So I think that getting uncomfortable and doing that work that, to go out and do the stuff that none of us like doing necessarily. Like what I found early in my career is I hated prospecting when I needed to do it. And as soon as I didn't need to do it anymore, then it's fun because you don't need to do it anymore. So now it's fun to do because if you lose, who cares, right? But when you need the new client, it's no fun if you don't get the new client. But I also think that there's this misconception out there, especially amongst the best financial advisors, where they look at a lot of the advisors that are really good at marketing and they think, well, I'm not going to do that. That's not me. They might even say that's sleazy. That's salesy. And here's the truth. The truth is, and this is going to be controversial, but I'm going to say it. The truth is, I think that a lot of the financial advisors that are great at marketing aren't very good at the planning. And so if you're a financial advisor, and I say this all the time, if you're a financial advisor looking at these other people that are doing marketing and you're really good at that, you're above average. If you don't tell anybody, what does it matter? You're any good at it, first of all. And then second of all, there's a lot of, I always say what gets me up every day anymore these days is saving people from bad advice and bad advisors. What if you go out into the world every day and you look at these other people that are doing well at marketing and you're not doing well when it comes to your marketing, it's not your privilege to learn how to do it well, to learn how to be better at lead generation and top of the funnel stuff and bringing new clients in and all the marketing things that people that do it well. It's not your privilege to learn how to do those things well. It's your responsibility, because if you're a good advisor, then you need to be doing marketing so you can be attracting those clients so you can save them from bad advice and bad advisors, right?
Adam, if you could kind of pick apart this analogy or this kind of these connected ideas. I think we're all in agreement that what needs to be working is a combo of a scalable, repeatable process that enables your service offering, right? Let's just call it holistic financial planning, whatever kind of sub form that takes. And it's obviously can be different here and there across firms. But you need to have it and systems around it. And then what tech you're layering into that is, you could micromanage in perpetuity, right? Like you were saying a second ago, you could really narrowly focus on all these different efficiencies and flows and so on. So you need some level of scalable process. You need some level of differentiation. Like, how are you telling the story about you that is at least somewhat not copy and paste what the advisor across the street is saying? And then this key component that you can really go deeper on with us is you have to be out in the market, getting in front of people and telling the story, whatever that story is. And I guess what I'm saying is, like, I'm curious. I think there are firms that spend way too much time and focus, and I think this is what you're saying, on micromanaging and like hyper changing process, spending years on differentiation and like really all these nuanced ways of how we're different and the messaging around those things. But then if the other sort of leg of the three-legged stool of like, okay, great, like you have a scalable process, you have great differentiation, but if you're not out in the market getting in front of people, none of it matters anyway. So anyway, like, what are those levels, right? Like, in our opinion, you need it all, but like Kelsey and I talk to firms every day who are maybe over calibrating in certain of those areas, but like, to your point, not actually getting in front of leads, so it doesn't matter anyway. So I don't know if I answered my own question, but pick that apart if that makes sense.
I'll give you two things. The first thing I'll say is, as you're talking and you're explaining this, I'm picturing another analogy where I'll use a car dealership as an example. There's a car dealership, let's just say, or you're starting a car dealership. You're starting a car dealership. We're just going to say, I don't know, it's a Honda dealership, and you don't want to spend a lot of money or time on the storefront. You don't want to be on the main causeway. It's too much money. So you're going to go put your car dealership in the middle of the country, and then you're going to rehash your sign. And then when nobody shows up, you change the sign again. And when not a lot of people are coming and I'm kind of bored, I think I'll repaint the showroom, So you keep doing all these things to your dealership to make it look nicer. And maybe you hire some new people, you replace some employees, you increase your technology, but nobody's coming to buy cars. You don't even have commercials, right? I feel like that's the process of financial advisors changing their mission statement for the third time, changing their software, improving their processes again for the 10th time, trying to do everything themselves, because it's easy to have 10 things to do than to maybe outsource 5 of them and have more time, where it's like, oh man, if I have this extra time, I have to go do the stuff I hate, right? But here's the thing about the stuff you hate. You don't, it's not that tough, especially after COVID. It's gotten easier. It's not like when I started where you had to go door to door and because of the do not call list, right? But the processes you're talking about, we believe that you have to have, to a certain extent, some kind of foundation in place so that when a new client does show up, whether you found them or otherwise, that they have, a good experience. And that includes everything from portfolio management to the way your office looks, to the experience they get from the first email and the first phone call to the final, welcome meeting, if you will. Call it new client welcome kit. But the onboarding process, you have to have a good onboarding process too, because if you don't have a good onboarding process, what's the point of going out and finding new prospective clients if your onboarding process only turns a 15% conversion ratio? Like ours has north of an 85% conversion ratio. So it's like, we know that if it doesn't work out, we always joke, actually, we tell prospects this. They're like, look, 1 out of 10 people aren't going to hire us. And that's usually because it's like marriage. Like, if I love you, but you don't love me back, marriage probably isn't going to last very long, right? And that's okay. We're not for everybody. You're not, and we're not going to be for everybody either. So I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah. I think so it's reminding me of something in startups that gets talked about a lot, which it's this phrase, get outside of the building or get out of the building. And so what it is it's basically like, I think they're referring to a physical building, but in startups, it's also building your product. Like, you have to get it to a certain point for it to be ready for someone to react to, and that you think it's good enough for a customer to go through or react to or what have you. But at that point, if you're not getting in front of folks and you're not getting in front of enough leads and getting that feedback, then all of the tweaks you're making are essentially in vain, because it's not based in reality in terms of like who is supposed to be consuming this, who's supposed to be buying this, who's supposed to be paying for this. And so it's not to say don't ever tweak anything. You likely will have to tweak things, but tweak things based on a real input from a prospective client or multiple prospective clients. So I think that that's spot on of like, yeah, you have to have something good to go to market with. But then from there, if you don't have enough customers, it might not be that if you don't have enough customers to prove that it's your service or to prove that it's your brand or to prove that it's your office or what have you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Adam, can you point too in that when I said earlier that I tend to get bored when I've mastered something, one of the things my staff told me, this was way back in my 2008, 2009, I remember wanting to change something in our onboarding process, and one of our staff's like, Adam, it works. Why do you want to change it? And it's just because I was bored. So you got to go do something else. Go ahead. Sorry, Zach.
No, that's in the vein I was headed. I'm curious if you can think back in time where, just as you two just said, it's like you need to get in front before you like hyper define everything about your service offering. Your customer should be informing it as you get people in the door and you get feedback and you're refining. And it's, us at Seeds is we had to get something into the market that we're really proud of. And now early customers are shaping what the product's going to be tomorrow and the next day and the next day and the next day. Can you think back to that moment where it's like you felt like once you went and started the business that you're now running, where it was like, okay, this is good enough. My instinct is that door to door, get out of the building, go get in front of customers. So kind of a two-parter, like what worked? What was like a light bulb moment of like, okay, now I'm in front of people and I'm getting, the beginning of the snowball. I'm getting people to say yes. And what are they saying yes to? But then on the other side of that, like what do you remember learning after your first 10 customers, let's say, of like, wow, now I need to do it this way and I need to do this way?
I'm going to answer both of those questions with a story about a legendary financial advisor and coach to financial advisors named Nick Murray. Either of you know Nick Murray? Heard or know the name? So Nick,
I don't think so.
This just dates me. Nick Murray used to be called the financial advisor's financial advisor. He's written several books for financial advisors. He's wonderful. And if you're a financial advisor watching or listening to this, check out his books. They're amazing. But Nick, if he's listening to this, he won't care. He wasn't the most pleasant person in the world. I think he's still alive, I believe. But I begged him, like I did so many people in my career, to be my mentor. I mean, I would ask people until they'd give me their ear, and I think reluctantly they did it. I don't think half the people that were my mentors didn't want to mentor me. I just wouldn't leave them alone. And Nick one time said to me on the phone, I said to him, and this goes along with something we were saying a second ago, but I said, hey Nick, I'm really struggling with getting new business, and I feel like being young is tough in this business, and I'm thinking about getting my CFP. What do you think? And he says, Adam, there is only one designation in my experience in this industry that is ever correlated with the most successful financial advisors in the country. And it's the STP. And I'm like, STP, what are you talking about? And he says, see the people. It's the advisors who see and talk to the most people who are the most successful. So, and I always laugh when I say this because he always used to hang up on me. He'd never say goodbye. So he'd say, so stop worrying about this next alphabet soup you want to put after your name and go see more people. And he just hung up on me. And that's it. And so that was one of two just groundbreaking phone calls I had with Nick Murray that kind of shaped my future. The other one was telling him that I was worried about this client, and it's like a big client prospect, I should say, that I couldn't get him to come on board. And I said, I've told him this, I've told him that. We've had a few meetings. And I just can't get him to see that it'd be better to hire me than this other company that they're working with. They're doing unethical things. I didn't want to say, you don't want to beat up your competition, but I felt bad. But I was like, look, your advisor's doing this. They shouldn't be doing this. It's not right. And he says, Adam, I've never met anybody who enjoys pain more than you do. And he would always pause for me to reflect on the insult. And he says, I've never met anybody who enjoys pain more than you. Then he says, stop trying to help people who don't want your help. And he hung up on me again. And that's just how the calls went. But so I think that I learned early on that you can only do so much process improvement to the point where you just have to execute. You just have to go do it. It's like Kelsey was saying. You have to get out of the building, get out of the house. And it's not going to be perfect. It's like the people that say, oh, I want to have kids someday, but I'm just waiting until I'm financially ready. You're never going to be financially ready. Just have kids. It'll work out. Go out and
I have three.
It'll work out.
I have 3 kids and I am not financially ready.
Yeah, same. I am super not financially ready for all my kids. Wait, so can we pause on that last one? Because Zach, I feel like this can be a moment for us as leaders in a startup who are bringing a product to market. So stop trying to help people who don't want your help. Can we just double click on that and just talk about if you feel that you're good at this, Adam, and you can say you're still not good at this if you're not, but if you do feel that you're good at this, can you speak to how you know when it's time to quit on a prospect?
Oh.
How fast do you quit on a prospect at this point in your career?
Sure, that's a great question. These days, I could go through our onboarding process and I don't bore you with all that, but these days, if we have a new prospect come through marketing, a referral, networking, it doesn't matter how they came in the door, how we found them, we give them 3 strikes. We will follow up once, then we follow up 2 weeks later. So when they reach out to us, we'll follow up a week later, then 2 weeks, then a month later. And if we don't hear back from them after the month, we can send out what's called the final message. It's a template, and it just says something to the effect of, hey, Kelsey, the last thing I ever want to be is a nag, but I noticed that you hadn't reached out to us, or if you hadn't replied to us in the last couple of times we've reached out. So, if you ever want to use us as a sounding board, please know we're here for you. And you never have to be a client to ask a question. Take care, me, send. And what we find is a lot of people respond to that message because they're like, oh, they're not going to sit here and beg for our business anymore. And then the other people, we just put them on a lead list. It's it's a spreadsheet with so January through December, and we put them out 6 months drip, 12 months drip, whatever, depending on how high value they are. And that's how we do our follow-up. If it's a client that's gone through, or prospect that's gone through our whole process and they're still kind of on the fence, which doesn't happen a lot, usually after the intro call and discovery meeting for us, they're probably going to hire us. It's not, we don't need the next 2 meetings. It's already going to happen. But in the case that after the financial planning meeting, they're still on the fence, some people will say, hey, can we have a Q&A meeting or just one more meeting? And we'll do one more. So just no agenda, let them ask questions, and that's it. And then if they still, depending on how nice they are and how much we like them, we might let them have a second. But it's the number of times that's happened in the last 5 years has been once or twice. We bring in right around 25 to 30 clients a year. And that's between, last year we brought in, 24, 25 million. This year it looks like about 30. So it's we bring in a fair amount of prospects every year. And I think we all have to recognize as advisors that every client takes about the same amount of time. Sometimes smaller clients take more time than larger clients. So if you take too much time with everyone, even if they don't want to work with you, or if you're not sure if they want to work with you, your time might be better off just finding another prospect.
Mm-hmm. And you're kind of highlighting a reason why like getting out of the building is so important because, and I've talked with quite a few advisors at this point about this, but you're trying to reach that point of repeatability where you can predict, how long it will take to close a prospect, how many calls it will take, and what revenue will be generated from that customer and how long it will take to onboard you're trying to prove that out. So I do think it's hard really early because you don't have that data. So you don't know what's out of the ordinary necessarily. Like you don't know like, oh, this prospect's taking way longer, or this prospect clearly just doesn't get it or doesn't want it compared to like my 20 other that I closed, this year. So I do think that that's a challenge. I don't know if you have any advice there around like kind of getting to the point of repeatability, but I would love to hear it because I know a lot of early stage advisors kind of run into this.
Yeah, I was hoping I wouldn't have to interrupt you because you got me all pumped up there for a second. But I'm not a big baseball fan. But I do know that if you hit the ball 3 out of 10 times, you get invited to the All-Star game. And that's baseball. So if you hit the ball 30% of the time, you get invited to the All-Star game.
Mm-hmm.
In this business, if you hit the ball 1 out of 10 times, it doesn't make a difference. And unlike baseball, where you get to go out to bat maybe 3 times per game, and you play a game every 2 or 3 days, you get to play the game every day, and you choose how many times you go up to bat. So this is where I think I excelled early on, and then eventually I just got better and better and better at it, and my batting average got better. But in the beginning, especially, or even if you're in the intermediate part of your career where you're 5-10 years in, you're kind of stuck, plateaued, you get to choose how many times you go up to bat. And then it's just outworking everybody else because everybody feels like that. We all feel
Mm-hmm.
right? None of us want to go up to bat. It's no fun. But if you do it, you can go home feeling really good about yourself at the end of the day, at the end of the week. So, I've built scorecards in the past where, every time you pick up the phone, it's 1 point. If you talk to somebody, it's 5 points. If you ask for a referral, not get one, ask, 15 points. Land an appointment, 25 points. And for our financial advisors that have worked for us, I'd say if you get to 1,350 points on this card, and that's not arbitrary, it's an actual number, then you can go home. If it's Thursday afternoon, go home because you have done everything you need to do to be successful at that point. So it's so much more about the activity, getting uncomfortable, as one of my friends in the business calls it, relentless execution.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, getting out of the house and realizing you don't have to be the best converter. You don't have to be the best salesperson. You don't have to be charismatic or good on camera. None of those things matter. Just go up to bat. Otherwise, if you don't go up to bat, what is the probability you'll succeed?
Oh, sorry. I just get so excited by this. I don't know if you've read anything or consume anything by Alex Hormozy, but he tells this story that always sticks with me. He talks about how early in his career, he was like a gym. He tried to start a gym. And early in his career, he had a mentor who was just crushing it. And he remembers going to the mentor and being like, he was doing a lot of flyers on cars and stuff. And that was the recommendation. And he went to the mentor and he was like, I'm doing this and it's not working. And the mentor was like, well, how much are you doing? And he was like, I'm doing 100 a day. And the mentor was like, I have a team doing 1,000 a day. If you're doing 100 a day and we're in the same local market, you're just not doing enough. Like, I'm sorry, you're not doing enough. And it's the same. He runs into it now. He is a coach for other business owners, and he runs into it all the time where they're doing like a fraction, like they're in front of like a tiny fraction of the people that he does. Like they're doing like 5 outbound a day, and he's doing like his team is doing like 100. And it's like, well, obviously you're not going to have the same growth or the same like speed to iteration on what you're doing because you're just not doing enough. Like, unfortunately, it's just that simple. Like, there's nothing you can do to change that. So it's kind of reminding me of that idea. And it's true. No one wants to do it. Like Zach and I all the time. We talk about this all the time. Like, we want to do more outbound, like from us to prospective customers. And there's always something else to do. It's easy to just find a reason why you can't do it.
Pet peeve is when you decide on a strategy and you start executing, quitting after 2 weeks because it's you got to give it 6 months to see if it works.
I know.
Not a few weeks.
It's hard.
Adam, we're going to end up needing, like we talked about before we started recording, a whole additional episode. But in the few minutes we have left, would love to hear about this venture of kind of translating everything you've learned and what is sort of instinctually your personality as it relates to getting out of the office, getting out of the house, getting in front of people, and bringing that to other advisors, even, sort of the coaches we were just talking about, that example. So what is that starting to look like for you? How, I think as you were just saying, you have sort of the instinct for it, but that doesn't mean advisors don't have the willingness for it. It may not be their instinct, but they have the willingness. And it's a matter of how do you find the bandwidth and system to go forth and go get in front of people. So how are you doing that? What is that looking like for your business?
Sure. Yeah. I always say that most advisors are pick your engine, V8, V12, they're an engine and they have the ability, they just don't have the right gasoline. And so they just need the right gas, right? So I'll make this short, but I have a passion project that I've accidentally started. I helped a friend 2 years ago now. We had a talk. He was really down in the dumps, borderline, kind of depressed, sick of the industry, plateaued, stuck, wasn't growing. And he asked me, he was a longtime friend. He'd been in the business longer than me, actually. He's been in the business 32 years now. But he said, would you be willing to build out your business for me, like in Dropbox, and teach me how you do what you do? Because I told him I would years ago. And so I said yes. And we spent 14 weeks together and 27 hours of Zoom calls. And in that 14 weeks, he brought in $7 million of new AUM. And then last year in 2024, he grew at 41%. He had a record year. And I had so much fun doing it. Plus, my wife for 15 years has been telling me, hey, you need to help other advisors. You're good at this. And I always told her, babe, I don't have time to start another company. Well, here we are. So I had so much fun helping him. We decided to start Adrenaline Advisor Consulting. So it's basically built by advisors for advisors. It's self-study on demand. We do 2 office hours per month for an hour right now. So it's an hour twice a month where we're just doing Q&A. So somebody could be at Module 1, Course 3, or Module 9, Course 10. And there's more than 50 courses, by the way, spanning from processes and client service models to onboarding and prospecting and using AI to get new leads. I mean, there's everything that we do is in this program. And so we started it with a cohort of 15 founding members this last year, and we've kind of perfected it, or I should say we're still perfecting it. Literally, when we're done with this podcast, I'm going to go keep working on it. But it launches to the public on September 9th. So it's September 9th, 2025. We're opening it up to the public.
Amazing. One specific thing that before we recorded, you were calling out, which I think is important, is the coursework is like clearly progressive, meaning, because again, we talked about earlier, where do I begin? There's so many different things in this profession as a practitioner and business owner that you need to get in place, and trying to calibrate to, should I put this much effort into this or this much effort into this? And it sounds like what you're designing is sort of helping answer all those questions. Start here, get to this, because this all leads to then your ability to go do this lead gen component, but it requires all of this sort of foundational stuff to get there.
And we're teaching financial advisors metaphorically how to race a race car. And we all know how to drive, but we're teaching them how to drive a stick shift, and we're teaching them how to drive it fast. And we got to go in order. We don't want to just put people in a 220 mile an hour car out of the gate. They're going to end up wrecking the car, and they'll blame us, right? They'll say, oh, it didn't work. It's like, well, no, we have to have the foundation in place, the onboarding in place, then we can teach you how to bring in leads. But this is what we're trying to build, or what we think we've built modestly, is the gasoline. It's almost plug and play. A lot of the things like portfolio management, for instance, we say that's like religion. You need to figure out your own way to do that, whether you're doing it on your own, outsourcing, SMAs, UMAs, third-party money managers, TAMPs. We don't do that, and we don't want to. So there's certain other areas where like the education meeting in our onboarding process needs to be unique to that advisor. So we tell them what we do, or we steal Michael Kitz's one line. I don't think this is his either. Somebody told me the other day with somebody else, but the idea of not shoulding on people. So we don't tell anybody they should do this. We just say, look, this is what we're doing at our practice that works really well. We strongly recommend you do the same or something similar. But at the end of the day, it's your business,
What I love about this, like what you're describing, obviously it hasn't launched yet, but when you were describing it before we started recording, I love that it is like the antidote to the silver bullet growth sale, which is something Zach and I talk about a lot. A lot of consultants, tech products, all the vendors, right, that an advisor has at their access to claim to be solving a growth problem, when a growth problem is typically, it could be a number of things. It's a very multifaceted thing. It's not just marketing. It's not just ops. It's not just process. It's not just service. Like there's so many things that go into that. So I love that it is comprehensive. So even if the firm does have some things that are going right, they're confirming and validating, okay, yes, they're going right, or they could be slightly tweaked or optimized maybe, or getting some new ideas, but then they can really learn from the things that are probably not going right, that have kept them stuck. So I think that that's awesome. Is it designed for a certain stage of advisor?
Sure. Well, first of all, you're so right, because one of the we talk about seeds, right? I mean, there is no one thing or three things that's going to launch your practice to unmatched growth. It's it's planting a bunch of seeds and doing a lot of different things, and all at the same time, and cultivating those seeds. I'm sorry, what was the question? It was
just if it's focused on a certain like stage of growth, or can a kind of firm of any size benefit from the service?
So far we have advisors as young as 2 to 3 years in the business that are in the program within the founding members. We have I was surprised actually. I thought our market was going to be, advisors that are 2 years in the business with $5 million in assets under management, upwards of $200 million in management, with no regard to how long they've been in the business. But we've got somebody who's in the program who has been in the business for 40 something years, and he has like 200 to something odd million under management. We're talking to a company right now that wants to do an enterprise deal where they pay for a bunch of seats for their advisors, because it's a mega RIA where they have several advisors working at the firm, and they want their advisors that are not partners, but the growing advisors to have access. So I think that it can help anybody. I think that, like I said earlier, we all want to run our businesses differently. This is just how we do it, and with a bunch of free secret. I shouldn't say it's free. It's not free, but it's with a bunch of secrets that we're giving away. And then, we're still running our practice. We're not, I'm not a retired advisor that sold my practice and now I'm, teaching people what I did. We're still doing it, and we're changing. It's evolving, as we're teaching it.
Mm-hmm. Adam, I think we've all agreed we're going to have to set up another episode after you guys launch, and we'll check in on all of the above. In the meantime, though, when you guys launch, how do people find the program?
The easiest way is probably adrenalineadvisor.com. So just the website, adrenalineadvisor.com. You can find me on LinkedIn, of course. And then we're all over the socials. We're starting to put, shorts out, reels, TikToks, fun stuff like that. So
amazing. Well, thank you so much. We appreciate all the insights today. It's been an awesome conversation, and we'll definitely check in once you guys are launched.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.